I never thought I'd end up here, honestly. Linda and I had a good life, 2 kids, a decent house, and what I always thought was a solid marriage. We'd been together for almost 10 years. Sure, there were fights, but nothing I thought we couldn't handle. She was the type of woman who always knew how to push my buttons, sometimes bitchy, always self-centered, but I loved her. Or at least I thought I did. It all started about 6 months ago when I noticed she was acting strange. She'd come home later than usual from her book club, which I knew was a lie because I'd see her sneaking out early in the morning sometimes, looking guilty. She'd brush it off, calling me paranoid or accusing me of not trusting her. Honestly, I thought maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe she was just stressed with work or the kids, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Then I started noticing little things. Her phone kept changing hands. She'd get defensive if I asked about her whereabouts, and her stories about her day didn't match up anymore. She'd start a fight just to shift the focus away from herself. I'd catch her lying about trivial stuff, and it hurt more than it should have. I mean, I wasn't perfect either, but I didn't lie to her about where I was or what I was doing. Looking back, I think I was just trying to ignore the red flags, telling myself I was being paranoid. One afternoon, I decided to check her phone after she left it behind on the kitchen counter. I didn't think I'd find anything serious, just some harmless texts with her friends. But then I saw a message from Alex, a number I didn't recognize, asking if she'd be free that night, saying, "Can't wait to see you again." My stomach sank. I stared at that message, trying to process what it meant. My mind raced. Who was Alex? Why was she texting him? Was she cheating? I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the way she'd been acting lately, it felt like my suspicions were right. I kept that message just in case. I didn't confront her right away. I wanted to see if there was more. Over the next few days, I kept an eye on her, watching her reactions, listening for slip-ups. Then came the private ballet lessons at her studio. She'd been obsessed with enrolling the kids, especially our daughter, Emily. She said it was for her confidence, but I noticed she was always sneaking out late on those nights. The studio was locked after hours, but I'd seen the security footage: Linda, in a tight black dress, sneaking out after dark, her and some guy I'd never seen before. That's when I got the actual proof. I managed to get access to the security system recordings, thanks to a friend I knew who worked at the studio. And what I saw still haunts me. My wife Linda and this guy, who I later found out was her ballet instructor, Mr. Ryan, going into the studio after hours, locking the door behind them. I watched as they kissed, touched each other, and God help me, had sex right there in the dance studio. It was the clearest proof I could have ever asked for. I never thought she'd do something so low, especially during the time she was supposedly teaching our daughter ballet. I was stunned. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. All those nights I thought she was at her stupid book club or out with friends, she was with Ryan. And the worst part, she lied to my face every single day, pretending everything was normal. It's like I never really knew her at all. That moment, watching that footage, was the beginning of the end for me. I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine, but I also didn't know how to confront her without losing myself in anger and hurt. I sat there in my chair, watching the footage over and over, feeling a mixture of rage, betrayal, and disbelief. It was surreal seeing her lips pressed against his, hands wandering, and then that final moment when they were completely lost in each other in the studio that I'd thought was innocent. I'd always considered Linda to be a bit bitchy and manipulative, but this was something else. This was beyond anything I could have imagined. I felt my stomach knot up, my fists clenched. I was furious at her for lying, furious at myself for missing all the signs, and honestly, I just felt broken. I waited until she came home that evening, trying to keep my composure, but inside I was boiling. When she walked through that front door, wearing her usual smirk like she hadn't a care in the world, I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't keep this bottled up anymore. I told her I needed to talk. Her eyes narrowed, that bitchy look creeping in. She probably knew what I was about to say, or at least sensed I'd found out something. But she played it cool like she always did and said, "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." I couldn't hold back then. I told her I knew about the secret nights at the studio, about Ryan, and about the texts. Her face twisted into a sneer. She started lying, quick and sharp. "You're crazy, Mark. That's just some stupid misunderstanding. Ryan is just a friend, nothing more. You're overreacting because you don't trust me anymore." She kept repeating that, how she was innocent, how I was paranoid, but I'd seen the footage. I knew the truth, and no amount of her lies could change that. She then turned it around, throwing the blame on me, saying I was insecure, that I didn't give her enough attention, that I was too busy with work and the kids. That was classic Linda, twisting everything around, making me feel like I was the problem, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I had enough, that I knew she was cheating and I wasn't going to pretend anymore. The look in her eyes when I said that was something I won't forget, pure disdain mixed with a little panic. The worst part was her reaction. She smirked and said, "You're overreacting. You've always been insecure. If you think I'm cheating, maybe you're the problem, Mark." That was the kind of person she was: deflect, lie, manipulate. And even as I stood there staring at her, I felt something shift inside me. I knew I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay, no matter how much I loved her or how much I wanted things to go back to normal. I was done being the fool. After that confrontation, she stormed out to clear her head, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I was a mess, angry, cheated on, humiliated. I kept replaying everything in my mind, trying to make sense of it all. How could she do this? How did I miss the signs? Did she ever really love me? Or was I just some placeholder until she found someone better? I felt so betrayed I couldn't even cry anymore. Just emptiness. That's what it felt like, an absolute emptiness inside. Like I'd lost a part of myself that I'd never get back. In the following days, I started to piece things together. I found more evidence, texts from Ryan that got more explicit, more suggestive. I even managed to see some messages from Linda to him, trying to arrange their little clandestine meetings. Every new thing I uncovered just fueled my anger and sadness. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what yet. I felt trapped, like I was suffocating in this mess of lies. The woman I'd loved and trusted turned out to be nothing but a manipulative, cheating bitch. And now, I had to figure out whether I was going to fight for my marriage or cut my losses and walk away. That decision haunted me every night, but I knew one thing: things would never be the same again. The days that followed were a blur of sleepless nights and endless thinking. I couldn't shut off my mind, replaying everything I'd discovered, every lie she told me, every moment I missed. It was like my whole life was crashing down, and I felt like I was drowning in a sea of betrayal. I couldn't even look at her the same way anymore. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I loved, she was turning out to be someone I barely recognized. The line between love and hate blurred, and I was teetering on the edge of a breakdown. I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. I had to confront her again, but this time I was more calculated. I decided to lay everything out on the table. No more hiding my feelings, no more pretending I was okay. I waited until she was home from work, calm but firm. When she walked into the house, I was already sitting on the couch, her phone in hand, the evidence of her betrayal right there in plain sight. I looked at her coldly and said, "We need to talk." She rolled her eyes, that smirk creeping onto her face like she thought she had all the power. But I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I flat out told her I knew about her affair with Ryan, about the after-hours visits, the texts, everything. Her eyes widened for a second, then she quickly regained her composure. "You're crazy," she snapped. "You're just jealous, insecure, and imagining things. Ryan's just a friend. You're overreacting as usual." I shook my head and pulled out the footage I'd saved from the security system. "This footage says otherwise," I said quietly. Her face paled slightly, but she quickly recovered. "That's not what it looks like," she said. "You're just seeing what you want to see. I swear, Mark, I don't know what you're talking about." That lie, that pathetic attempt to deny what was right in front of her, was the last straw. I felt the anger rising inside me, hot, uncontrollable. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "You think I do know? You think I'm stupid? I saw everything. You and Ryan having sex in the studio after hours. Do you even realize how much you've hurt me? I don't even recognize the woman I married anymore." My voice cracked, but I kept going. You lied to my face for months, betrayed everything we stood for, and for what? A stupid fling with Ryan. You're nothing but a selfish, manipulative bitch. Her expression shifted to one of pure disdain, like she couldn't believe I would dare to call her out. You're so dramatic, she spat. You think you're some kind of victim. I do what I want. Maybe you should focus on your own problems instead of snooping through my stuff. That was her typical defense. Twist everything around, make it my fault. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. I told her she needed to leave, that I didn't want her in my house or my life if she was going to keep lying and cheating. Her reaction was to explode into a barrage of insults, calling me paranoid, insecure, and controlling. She said I was a terrible husband and she'd be better off without me. Deep down, I knew the marriage was over at that point. Her lies, her betrayal, they'd cut me too deep. I'd always tried to be a good husband, to give her everything she wanted, but in the end, I was just a fool who let her manipulate me from day one. I couldn't stay in a relationship built on deception. I told her she had to go, and she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I felt a strange mix of relief and devastation. It was like I'd finally taken the first step toward freeing myself from this nightmare, but at the same time I was crushed inside. That night, I sat alone in my dark living room, holding the evidence of her affair in my hands. I thought about everything, our kids, the good times, the promises we made, and I realized I'd been living in a lie. She painted herself as the victim, but she was the one who betrayed our vows, our trust. I thought about telling her parents, confronting Ryan, doing something dramatic, but I knew deep down I just wanted to get out of this mess. I had to protect myself and my kids from her toxicity. I couldn't keep pretending that this wasn't happening or that I could somehow fix her. The truth was, I was broken, and I needed to find a way to pick up the pieces. I didn't sleep that night, and I kept thinking about what I needed to do next. I knew I had to be strong for myself and for Emily, but part of me just felt numb. My life had changed forever, and there was no going back. I had to decide if I was going to fight for a marriage that was already dead or if I was going to cut my losses and start over. Honestly, I didn't know what was worse, the pain of losing her or the pain of knowing I'd been so blind for so long. Either way, I was facing a new chapter, and I wasn't sure how I'd get through it. The next few days felt like I was walking around in a haze. Every time I looked at Linda, I saw the woman I once loved, but also this stranger who had betrayed everything we built. I kept replaying everything, the lies, the secret nights, the footage, and honestly, I felt like I was losing my mind. I was furious, hurt, and scared all at once. I kept asking myself if I should fight for her or if it was better to just let her go. The truth was, I didn't even know who I was anymore. My whole sense of trust had been obliterated. I finally decided I needed some space, so I moved into the guest room. It was the only way I could think clearly. I spent hours scrolling through the footage, reading the texts, trying to come to terms with what I'd discovered. Every time I looked at her, I felt this mix of contempt and sadness. How could she do this to me? To our family? It was like she had no regard for the vows we took, for the feelings I had invested in her for so many years. I felt so betrayed that I wondered how I had ever trusted her at all. One evening, I finally got the courage to talk to her again. I sat her down, trying to stay calm. I told her I knew about everything, about Ryan, the secret nights, the lies. Her face twisted into that same smug, bitchy expression she always had. She looked at me like I was a complete idiot, then started spinning her usual stories. "You're overreacting," she said. "This is just a stupid misunderstanding. Ryan's just helping with Emily's ballet. It's innocent. You're just insecure like always." I couldn't believe her. I told her that the footage proved otherwise. She denied everything, of course. Said I was crazy, that I was imagining things, that I was jealous and controlling. I felt a boiling rage inside me. How could she lie so shamelessly? I told her I didn't want her anymore, that I was done with her games. I told her if she cared even a little about this marriage, she'd leave and never come back. That's when she hit me with her usual manipulation, saying I was just trying to control her, that I was insecure and paranoid, and that I was the real problem. That night she packed her bags and left. Her parting words were that I was a controlling, jealous husband who couldn't handle her freedom. She said I was too insecure to keep her happy, and she was better off without me. Honestly, I just felt numb. Part of me wanted to scream, to shout at her, to tell her how much she'd hurt me. But I didn't have the energy. I just watched her walk out of the house, her heels clicking on the floor, and felt like I was finally free, yet more lost than ever. After she left, I found myself alone with all the evidence I'd gathered. It was haunting. I'd never thought I'd be in this situation, dumped, betrayed, feeling like I was losing my mind. But deep down, I knew I'd done the right thing. She was toxic, manipulative, and selfish. I realized I'd spent years trying to fix something that was already broken. Now, I just needed to figure out how to pick up the pieces, not just for myself, but for Emily. Because this mess had shattered our family, and I knew I'd have to be the one to hold it together moving forward. That night, I sat alone with my thoughts. I kept asking myself how I let it get this bad, how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to her true nature. I knew I needed to move on, but it was easier said than done. I still felt the sting of betrayal in every corner of this house, in every memory I'd shared with her. I was angry at her, but mostly I was angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. Still, I knew I couldn't stay in this emotional prison forever. I had to find a way to start over. One thing was clear. From now on, I'd be more cautious, more guarded. Because life had shown me that even the people you trust the most can turn out to be just another lie. The days turned into weeks, and I found myself caught in a strange limbo, part numb, part furious, part hopeless. I threw myself into work, trying to drown out the ache inside, but no matter how busy I kept myself, her betrayal lingered like a constant shadow. I'd look at Emily, our sweet little girl, and feel this awful guilt, like somehow I'd failed her by not seeing what was happening right under my nose. I knew I had to be strong for her, but honestly, most days I just felt like falling apart. I started to realize that I couldn't keep living in this constant state of chaos. I had to make decisions. Did I want to fight to save the marriage? Or was it already too broken? A part of me still clung to hope, hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd see the damage she caused and want to fix it. But deep down, I knew her. Linda was someone who always wanted her way, and once she got what she wanted, she'd just move on without a second thought. I decided I needed to confront her one more time, not for reconciliation, but to get some closure. I arranged a meetup at a neutral place, our favorite coffee shop, ironically, thinking I needed to hear her out one last time. When she arrived, her usual smirk was there, but now it seemed more forced, like she didn't quite believe what she was doing. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her, "This is it. I want the truth, and I want you to be honest with me. I deserve that much. Did you really love Ryan, or was it just sex, or was it something even worse?" She rolled her eyes, clearly annoyed that I brought it up again. "Mark, you're so dramatic," she said, flipping her hair. "It was just sex. It meant nothing. I was bored and Ryan was there, so we, whatever, did what we did. It's not a big deal. You're making it into something it's not." Her words felt like a slap. I could see her trying to minimize what she'd done, to make me think I was overreacting. But I was. I knew her better now. She was a liar, a manipulator, someone who would do anything for her own pleasure, regardless of the consequences. I pressed her further. "Did she ever tell you she loved you, or was it just sex like you said?" She scoffed, laughed a little, then looked at me like I was some paranoid fool. "Love, please. Ryan and I never did anything serious. And honestly, Mark, you're so insecure, it's embarrassing. You think I'd throw everything away for some stupid fling? Grow up." Her tone was cold and dismissive. That's when I realized she'd already made her choice. She didn't care about me or the marriage anymore. It was all about her, her needs, her selfish desires. That conversation was the final nail in the coffin for me. I felt this wave of clarity wash over me. I'd been a fool to believe she'd change, to think she'd be faithful, to think she cared. Her lies, her manipulations, they'd been there all along. I was just too blind to see it. I knew now that I had to do what was best for me and Emily. Staying with her would only mean more pain. More lies, more betrayal. I couldn't live like that anymore, so I told her I wanted her out of the house for good, that I was going to take full custody of Emily, and I'd do whatever it took to protect my daughter from her toxic influence. She didn't like that at all. She started yelling, calling me a controlling asshole, saying I was ruining her life, that she'd take me to court and make my life hell. But I didn't care. I knew I had to stand my ground. I was done being played by her. I was done pretending everything was okay. She left that day just like before, but this time there was a sense of finality. She was gone for good, and I was left with the mess she left behind. I felt relief mixed with dread. I knew that I had to rebuild my life to protect Emily and to get past the betrayal that had shattered everything I thought I knew about her. I started to focus on my healing, on figuring out how to move forward. I'd been through hell, but I also knew I couldn't let her win. I had to find a way to come out of this stronger, not just for me, but for my little girl. Looking back now, I realize how much this experience has changed me. I've learned that love isn't enough if it's built on lies. I've learned that some people are just selfish and manipulative, and that you have to put yourself first sometimes. Most of all, I've learned that trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I won't be making the same mistakes again. I'll never be blind to the signs of a toxic relationship, and I'll never let anyone hurt me or my daughter like that again. After Linda left for good, I felt like I'd finally taken a breath after holding my breath for months. The house was eerily quiet without her constant presence, and for a while, that silence was almost deafening. I found myself staring at the empty spaces where she used to be, trying to process everything I'd been through. I kept thinking about the lies, the secret nights, the betrayal, how I'd missed all the signs, how I'd trusted someone who turned out to be nothing but a manipulative bitch. But slowly, I started to pick myself up. I threw myself into rebuilding my life, focusing on Emily, making sure she felt safe and loved despite all the chaos. I knew I couldn't undo what she'd done, but I could protect my daughter and give her a better, more honest life. I cut ties with Linda completely. She was toxic, and I realized I had to leave her behind, no matter how much that hurt. Every day I reminded myself that I deserved better, that being alone was better than living in a lie, and that I wasn't going to let her ruin me. The process wasn't easy. There were nights I sat awake, haunted by the memories and the pain. I wondered if I'd ever trust again, or if I'd just become someone colder, more guarded. But I also knew that I'd learned something important, something I'd carry with me forever. Trust is precious, and once it's broken, you have to rebuild slowly, carefully. You have to be willing to accept that some things can never go back to how they were, but that doesn't mean you have to stay broken forever. I made a vow to myself that I'd be more cautious moving forward. I'd watch for the red flags, listen to my gut, and never ignore the signs of someone's true nature. Because I'd learned the hard way that love and trust are fragile, and betrayal can come from the person you least expect. I also realized that I was stronger than I thought, strong enough to walk away from someone who didn't value me, someone who lied, cheated, and manipulated. Looking back, I see this entire experience as a painful but necessary lesson. It's made me more aware of what I deserve and what I won't tolerate. I've come to accept that some relationships are beyond saving, and that walking away is sometimes the bravest thing you can do. I've also learned that no matter how much someone betrays you, you can find a way to heal, to forgive yourself for trusting too much, and to start over. Now I focus on my future, on rebuilding what was lost, on being the best father I can be, and on making sure Emily has stability and love. I don't know what's next, but I do know I'm done with the past. I've closed that chapter and I refuse to let it define me. Life goes on, and I'll face whatever comes next with a cautious but hopeful heart. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is protecting the ones I love and making sure I never get betrayed like that again.